Imam Muslim begins. He said, Hassan ibn Rabi' narrated to us that Hamad ibn Zayd narrated to us from Ayyub and Hisham. He said, Al-Makhlad ibn Hussein narrated to us from Hisham on Muhammad ibn Sirin, who said, indeed this knowledge is religion, so look to who you take your religion from. Muhammad ibn Sirin, rahimahullah ta'ala, he mentions a very important point, ya ikhwan, barakallahu feekum, that this knowledge is deen. It is the religion. So be careful where you take your deen from. Allah ta'ala has mentioned in many ayat explaining the truthful ones from the false ones, and the ones who are upon the sirat al-mustaqim from those who are upon the paths to Jahannam, and the likes of these affairs. And here Muhammad ibn Sirin is explaining to us from these qawa'id and principles that before we take one harf, one letter from a person, one harf, we must look into the individual. And we don't say like the people of al-muwazanat, this people of so-called balancing the scale, that we take the good and leave the bad. For as our Sheikh Rabi had mentioned, hafidhahullah ta'ala, that you're talking about a people who don't know sunnah from bid'ah, kufr from tawheed, sidq min al-kadhib, they don't know truth from falsehood, tawheed from shirk, sunnah from bid'ah. How are we going to call these people to sift between the affairs? How are we going to call these people to look between the affairs and have the understanding to have tamyiz to understand this is sunnah, this is bid'ah? Rather they take from the mawthuqeen, the trustworthy ones, those who are known to be honorable and upright in their deen and in their narration and in their aqidah and in their manhaj. As the Shaykh had mentioned in the khutbah, from the likes of Imam Ibn Baz, from the likes of Al-Muhaddith Al-Albani, from the likes of Al-Faqih Ibn Uthaymeen, from the likes of Al-Muhaddith Sheikh Muqbil, from the likes of the ulama, that these are the people that we take our deen from, ya ikhwan, barakallahu feekum. So before we take one harf, one letter from these individuals, we refer back to who we're taking it from, and we know about his condition. We ask about the condition of these peoples before we narrate upon them, ya ikhwan, barakallahu feekum. And then Imam Muslim went on to lay down these principles of Ahl al-Hadith. In the next narration he mentions on Abu Ja'far Muhammad ibn Sabah, that he narrated to us, that Ismail ibn Zakariya narrated to us from Asim ibn Ahwal on Ibn Sirin, who said, they didn't used to ask about the isnad, but when the fitna came, they would say, name for us your men. So look at the people of sunnah and accept their hadith, and look at the people of innovation and do not accept their hadith. Al-Shaykh Al-Muallimi rahimahullah ta'ala, he mentions in his book Ahammiyatu ilm al-rijal, the importance of the science of men. He mentions a very important sharh of this particular narration, or he says something that explains this narration. He said, with regard to the affairs of jarh wa ta'deel, that it is a major issue that the people know the affairs of jarh wa ta'deel. It is a major issue that we know the men. He said, and the people used to concern themselves with the affairs of jarh wa ta'deel, and they used to concern themselves with the affairs of the men, until the point where he said that the speech of jarh during the generation of the tabi'een was very little. They didn't have much criticism about the narrators from the tabi'een, and he says why? He says because of their close proximity to the guiding lamp, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Until in that generation there were very few who would dare lie upon the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So you find very few liars, and you find very few people who were heedless in their narration in those generations. But rather, most of the people whose narrations were dropped, this is all again from Al-Muallimi rahimahullah, most of the people whose narrations were dropped during that time of the tabi'een, it was because of them either being majhul, unknown, or for sayil hifd, or their memory was bad, or because they were from some of the firq, the groups like the Khawarij. You find these individuals' narrations being dropped in the generation of the tabi'een. He says, but after the generation of the tabi'een, he said they increased the heedless ones, and they increased the people of lying, and they increased the people of innovation, until the point he said that there was not one country, not one city on the face of the earth, except that there were in it the people of hadith, chasing after the condition of the people, looking after the condition of the people. He said in their homes and in the streets. Looking at the condition of the people, whether they were in their homes resting or whether they were in the streets walking or narrating, following up the narrators to say who was correct from who was incorrect. And Imam Mu'allimi went on to mention that this was from the preservation of the deen of Islam. How much more as the time has spread, as the Prophet ﷺ, that every generation would get worse and worse and worse. How much more after the generation of the Atba' Tabi'een and down until now, we find the likes of the Sururiyya and the Qutbiyya. Those who, as the ulama have mentioned, the difference between the Khawarij of old and the Khawarij of today is that the Khawarij of old, that they would make takfir on you for lying. Now we find the people of Ahl al-Takfir of our time, from the Sururiyin and the Qutbiyyin, min akdhab al-nas, from the most lying of the people. Min akdhab al-nas. Comparing some of the comparisons of the people of the Khawarij of the past, the most lying of the people. So here we see the people following up the narrators, following them up in their homes and in the streets to find out who was correct from who was incorrect. And then we find a people of tasahul, a people of leniency, a people who are disgusting in truth, that they want to make it so that we do not ask about the people and we do not concern ourselves with the people, but rather let anyone who comes and goes say whatever they want in the deen of Allah Ta'ala. They have no ghirah for the deen of Allah. They have more ghirah for their women. For if their wife walked out the house with her hair uncovered, they would have a heart attack. You would find them cursing and having fits in the streets. But when the people narrate in the deen of al-Islam and lie on the Messenger of Allah, they have no ghirah for the deen of al-Islam. They have no ghirah, no jealousy for the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. Anyone who comes and goes, narrates and says whatever they want to say, and does whatever they want to say, and they become more harsh on the people who try to preserve the deen than the people who are trying to invent in the deen. In truth, they are those who are helping to demolish the deen of al-Islam. As the Salaf used to say, whoever aids the innovator, then he has aided in the destruction of al-Islam. And from the aiding of the innovators, remaining quiet about him. And from the aiding of the innovator is speaking evil of those who defend the deen of al-Islam. A brother stands up and said, Fulan is upon the methodology of the Khawarij. Fulan gets on the minbar and says something about the kingdom of Saudi Arabia. And you try to correct the affair. And you try to make the affair correct. But rather you yourself are the one who is spoken about. And you are the one who is defiled. And you are the one who the people make evil about. But rather this individual who gets on the minbar and makes a whole dawla, a whole nation, a whole country evil and wicked, he, we say, leave alone. Be patient. Where's the tamyiz, ya ikhwan, barakallahu feekum? Where's our affair of differentiating? How do you rule, ya ikhwan? Kayfa tahkumun? How do you rule? Where's your tamyiz? Where's your ghirah for the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Where's your love for the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? As we know from the science of hadith, that the Prophet ﷺ came with the small word that had tremendous meaning. And the Prophet ﷺ said in the narration, "Man ahdatha fi amrina hadha ma laysa minhu fahuwa raddun." Whoever invents in this affair of ours that which is not from it, it is rejected. But when you find those rejecting that which is rejected, they are rejected. From those who ascribe to Salafiyah, from those who ascribe themselves to knowledge. Where's the tamyiz, ya ikhwan, barakallahu feekum? Where is the correct understanding? Where is the defense of the sunnah? Where is the defense of the people of the sunnah? As the Shaykh had mentioned the other day from the narration of Abu Bakr ibn Ayyash, where he said that from the sign of a Sunni, from the sign of a Salafi, is that he doesn't become angry when you talk about Ahl al-Bid'ah. And the Shaykh said that from the signs of a person of Ahl al-Bid'ah is when you speak bad about Ahl al-Bid'ah, their face changes. They become angry at you for defending the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. These are either one of two people. Either they are those, ya ikhwan barakallahu fikum, who are jahil. They don't know their left from their right, safihun. And as Imam Malik said, we don't take from them. Or they are those who have a gharad, a qasd, they have a secret intention. And that which they want to establish in the deen of al-Islam. And then Imam Muslim goes on, rahimahullah ta'ala, to mention in this narration that they didn't used to ask about the isnad when the time of the trustworthy narrators from the companions of the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, and all the companions are udul, they are all trustworthy. We don't ask about them. As Allah Ta'ala and His Messenger ﷺ have mentioned their trustworthiness, we don't question that. until the point that even in the science of hadith, that when we find in the science of hadith, people saying that the meaning of mursal, a mursal hadith, which actually is a tabi'i saying that the Prophet said such and such or did such and such. And we know the tabi'i never met the Prophet. Some people like this Abul Hasan, this jahil ahmaq, this brainless one from Britain who wrote this, translated this book on mustalah hadith, hadith terminology. He says that the meaning of mursal is the tabi'i narrating on the Prophet without mentioning the companion. If we know that the one who is missing in this narration is a companion, the narration is authentic. All the companions are trustworthy. There's no question about that. So they didn't used to ask about the isnad. They didn't used to ask about the isnad during the times even of the early tabi'een, as we had mentioned from the statement of Mu'allimi. But when it came down to the time where the people of bid'ah and firq began to spread their lies in support of their groups, this is when the ulama began to ask about the people. They would say, come and name for us your men. They wouldn't just take the narration like that. Give us your men. Tell us who told you this. Was his Aqidah Salafi? Was his Manhaj Salafi? Was he upon the methodology of Ahlul Sunnah? If he's upon the methodology of Ahlul Sunnah, as he says, then we take his hadith, we take his narration, we take the Aqidah from him. And if his Aqidah was other than that, from the people of innovation, then we will reject their narration. We don't take anything from them, ya ikhwan, barakallahu feekum.